Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're giving people a few more minutes to log in before we start. Thanks for joining. I'm going to, my dog is currently talking to me. I'm going to quickly let him inside. Hey. Nope. Inside. Excellent. All right, so I know people are going to be joining over the next few minutes, but we have a lot to go through. So this is going to be recorded. There's a lot of information we're going to be sharing today. I am CEO of Wavelength. My name is Katie. I'm joined by another fellow Katie, sales manager at Wavelength here. And we're excited to really walk you through some important trends to keep in mind when you're thinking of fundraising. This is super high level in terms of we could, through any of the bullets that we're going to actually be going through today, we could spend hours on one of them alone, but we really wanted you to focus on understanding some larger trends and being able to take some of these away to really apply to you and your school. When I am bringing in any of the research that we have found, we have provided the links to the articles that we found this research information at, and we've made sure that it's all 2022 to present in terms of the statistics, unless it's otherwise stated, because we do know that COVID has impacted people's giving behaviors and also just general trends across generations shift as they change their life stage. So on today's call, we're really going to be focused on who is doing the ask, the marketing language that you're using, where can people be donating, when are you asking, how are you recognizing these donors, and this last bullet is actually going to be a hefty amount of time we'll be spending, and it's really how do you approach people differently based on personalization and their profile and the data you have. As I said, this is a bunch of information we're going to be going through today. So what I think might be important to do is before we even dive in and start sharing some of these trends, some of this information, is think about the key question that you're trying to answer today. Like, what is a core need that you have or a challenge that you've been trying to grapple with this year, and try and think of that lens as you listen to some of the information we're sharing today. This is also part of our roundtable series. While our roundtables have oftentimes been schools sharing with each other and us leading some exercises, this will be a little bit more text heavy and sharing out with information just because it is trends and research. That said, we would love if you want to share, if you have questions, please speak up or feel free to share in the chat successes that you've had as a school related to the trends we've found. It's really useful for schools to learn from each other. So one thing I want to keep in mind through all of this as well is that data, which is a core pillar here at Wavelength as we focus on alumni engagement, data is going to be really essential to consider throughout each of these bullets and each of these topics we discover. One is thinking through what data do you have and how are you using it to actually reach out to your constituents, to track the giving, to also really understand how it's housed. How are you using it to influence future decisions next year in terms of how you're really going to try and adjust future campaigns? Now, the focus of today's call will be geared to alumni. However, this could be applied to parents and to any other community members. I always say take everything we share as a grain of salt in terms of knowing that this is the research studies. Those are done in concise settings. So what you want to do is then apply it to yourself and to your school with some A/B testing. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. You want to try and see what might have moved the needle a little bit to get, more donations in the door or larger donations in the door. So we're excited to share what we found today. This is definitely the start of many more conversations around donations, and we'll continue to have these. We'll share out this deck, we'll share out the recording, and if you have any questions, we'll try and answer them throughout the call or at the end, and we can always follow up over email or a future call as well. So without further ado, what we really want to think through is who's doing the asking. When you're thinking of donations, when you're thinking of fundraising, there are kind of three groups that could actually be asking your alumni or your community members to donate. One is the school itself. That this is like your development office, this is your team directly. The next is actually peers. These are alumni who are asking their fellow classmates for donations. And the last is these are more of the larger donors, from the headmaster to your trustees, to well-known leadership groups. Now, when you break these three groups up, you really want to think through who should be doing the asking to your alumni base. And there can be duplicative asks. So you as a development office can be asking the same people that your alumni volunteers are asking, but you really want to think through that list, that population of here's everyone we could be contacting. And this is the last bullet towards the end of the call that we'll be going through, is how do you break up this massive list of alumni you have and really personalize the outreach and make sure you're doing the right level of ask. So we did on a previous call have an hour-long session around creating volunteer roles that are focused on having fundraising volunteers reach out to their peers and what that looks like. I will link to that in the follow-up email that you'll be receiving tomorrow with all of these resources. But with the essence of time, I'm not going to delve too deeply into this volunteer job aid and what we talked about, although Katie will be able to kind of think through some key questions you want to consider when it comes to if you're bringing outsiders beyond your office into doing an ask like fundraising.
Thanks, Katie. What you need to be asking yourself as a school or institution is what available individuals in your network are willing and excited to support your school. And a key element there is tracking those individuals, right? So you can come back year after year to make sure that these are the individuals that are willing to contact their fellow alumni, friends, family. You are totally maximizing this because it's a chain reaction, right? Exponential growth in request for donations if you're utilizing volunteers. So at your institution, we really encourage you to keep a clear set of data on who is a willing volunteer, who is willing to reach out. And then furthermore, really keep in mind a set schedule for these volunteers. So do you have a way to set a specific number or goal for an individual volunteer? Do you have a way to track how that individual is doing? And do you have a way to collect and manage what they have done by a due date? So here, just really quickly, we have some screen grabs from the Wavelength platform, but this is something you can do individually, is create those, what Katie had 2 slides ago, what responsibilities your volunteers will have. And furthermore, so really look at what responsibilities your volunteers are going to have, what resources they need to be a successful volunteer. You as a school should really be thinking about your language, and we'll get into that in a further slide, and what you're providing your volunteers for outreach. You don't want to just say, hey, give your friend a call. You want to have that script provided to them so you can be in control of your marketing language. And then further back on this slide, I was, Katie, next slide, I believe.
This one?
No, okay.
We'll go to it. I think it's a later slide. I moved the slides around.
Sorry. Okay. And then furthermore, just one quick note is what kind of access you want to give your volunteers to your school's data. So do you want them to have everybody's phone, contact email address? Do you want to allow them to send mass emails? And do you want them to be able to see what the people they have reached out to actually followed through and donated? So keep in mind that access as well.
One suggestion we have around volunteers, because we know the recruiting process takes time to then being able to build them up and you trust them enough to do these activities and in their own time, is if a volunteer is no longer helping, but they were an ideal volunteer that you really appreciated their support, you can actually ask them saying, thank you for helping us. Is there someone else in your class that you think would be successful in this role, given that you can no longer support us? So there's always a way to try and find ongoing recruiting, even if you don't have exact names yourself. So moving on to what marketing language you want to be focusing on, something that research is showing is that people really do like guidance. So rather than just having a call to action of donate now, it's actually giving ideas of donation amounts. This contribution request actually is called a quantity request. And what it's known to is that people like to have norms. They like to know what's average donations, because from a decision-making process, they don't know if they're being too stingy or over donating. They really want guidance. And so there's actually been research that shows if you provide them ideas, they're more likely to give rather than be stalled out just because they don't know, so therefore they don't act. That said, what you want to think about is people adjust giving behavior directionally. So they're conforming to what they learn others are giving. So this one research was done where they actually gave higher numbers than what was actually average, and people did go give those numbers. If other people saw lower numbers, they tended to go to those lower numbers that were seen in front of them. So instead of 5, 10, 15, if it was 10, 20, 50, people did choose to elect higher numbers if they saw them. Now, you really want to take all of that in a cautionary tale of you don't want to all of a sudden be giving too many options. You don't want to be giving options that are way too high, and you want to make sure that your language is actually appropriate. So you can't be saying our average donations are, and then actually give an incorrect number just to try and get more donations in the door. So the key is that too many choices laid out can be too much, but you want to thread that needle of providing some choice, because people like to have guardrails, but not be too limited or be given too much choice. You can always have as a fourth option that open other amount, but we've seen that seeing numerical values has actually resulted in higher giving. Another thing to keep in mind is that people also like the concept of choice. So they really want to be able to give, but when they have the inability to choose where the dollars go, their control of their money is gone, right? So they donate to an entity, and while it is an altruistic giving behavior, a lot of people do like to decide where their dollar goes. So what they are going to want to do is, if you also provide ideas of donate to tuition, to like specific initiatives within your school, we actually see more people giving that way. The control and guidance is really what people are seeking. Again, though, cautionary tale of you don't want to provide too many words on the paper. You don't want to provide too much control, too much guidance, because it's really fine doing that fine line of providing those guardrails so those people who might not feel like they know what to do can be guided, but it also doesn't limit money on the table. You don't want to have people under give simply because they didn't want to give more because that option wasn't provided. We have found that there's actually some initiatives around giving that feels more personalized to the user. So we've actually had schools we work with focus on campaigns that are, let's say, around a sports initiative. So you've got, fundraising for specific equipment for this sports team. You target just those alumni from that sports team, and they actually are raising a lot of money to support this initiative. So people who feel more personally connected with the initiative and targeted because of their profile are also going to be likely to give. So when you're thinking about events, and to go back actually a step further, of we're talking about giving in general, you might have capital campaigns, you might have annual campaigns, specific events. This is just fundraising trends at large that you really are going to need to apply to whatever the initiative you have in mind. But beyond simply thinking about line items of give $10, $15, or for this initiative, a lot more you're seeing in marketing is around the importance of storytelling. You really want to be compelling in the impact of what donations have to offer for your school. Who are they impacting? The students. What are the students getting out of this? And you really want to have these personalized stories so that your alumni have the nostalgia of remembering what their experience was about, or they are loving the new initiatives your school is doing to be relevant to the current events around the world that's happening. So focus on impact of what single donations can really do. Younger generations are influenced by this storytelling a lot more than older generations, specifically when it comes to very immediate, very quick storytelling on social media. We'll go to social media a little bit later, but what you need to think about is how do you have a compelling, tight story in either a very quick visual, very quick video, or a leave behind, because you're fighting for space and attention when it comes to social media. Lastly, you can actually use data to actually impact and influence your storytelling. So showing the proof of your initiatives from previous years, where the donations went from last year and how many students it impacted or what programs it helped support. The data and proof of what has been successful in the past, showing that your donations and dollars are going somewhere that is meaningful to your alumni base, is really essential. Now, depending on the scale of your team and capabilities, you might want to think about having a variety of stories, having a variety of those data points, and using it and targeting that messaging depending on who you're speaking to. So older alumni are going to be influenced maybe a little differently in giving than young alumni in terms of what's compelling to them, what's going to get them to donate, and also that dollar value of how much they can give. This is worldwide, but these are general trends in terms of where people prefer to give versus where they're inspired to give. Inspired meaning they've been contacted or seen something that's going to give them the action to actually want to donate. And the prefer to give, that top row, is actually how they're giving. And this is across millennials, Gen X, and baby boomers. We're actually going to be going into US specific trends later on, but I just wanted to show you that when it comes to that differentiation from a language perspective, you also want to think through where you're present across what channels, because it's going to be important to think through how you get your message across to everyone. In 2022, just thinking about charitable donations in general, education is actually the third highest in terms of the industry where dollars are going. So as a school, you have a lot of potential here. It's just trying to increase participation rates and dollar value. But in general, education is high up in terms of the industries in which people are willing to donate to. Around marketing language, I think that a lot of times people are referencing ideas of what's happened in the past, looking online for support. There's so much material out there. And while AI is a mixed bag of positive and negatives, there's actually a lot of ways AI can help you generate ideas on how to initiate proper marketing and donation requests. It's another way just to get new ideas. If you're feeling like you have no idea where to start, you can actually have some prompts and ideas shared through AI. I'm seeing, Katie, that you've got a raised hand there.
Yes, we have a question to go back to the
Excellent.
previous slide.
Yep. This one?
one before that with
Yes.
all, can you, we had a request to kind of, I don't know if it's possible for you to blow this up or go to the link, but somebody was requesting to see the last slide. They couldn't see. They wanted to see
This
it bigger.
visual. Yeah.
They can have another minute with
So,
it.
yes, here's the thing. I have a lot of visuals like this throughout the presentation, and I know that there's a lot of text and images here. All of these links, all of these images are going to be accessible, and we're going to share this out to all of you by tomorrow. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to blow it up a lot larger than what it is right now. I can pause while I talk for a second here, but know that all of this is going to be shared out. The exact like resources and research style and all of that is included in the links. And Katie, please keep redirecting me as people ask questions. That's helpful. As we are here, though, does anyone else have questions so far that we can help to answer around type of people asking and the language being used right now? Give it a second as people are also looking at this visual. All right. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of statistics out there. I think and that's also where like here with the AI idea as well, there's so much out there and we're really just trying to consolidate super high level trends for you on this call. And we'll continue to hone in on more materials like this over time. But AI does allow you to help generate some ideas around marketing. It can help you just curate concepts of, can you give me some ideas of subject lines to use? Or how to react, or like if I'm looking at social media, what's the difference between Facebook and Twitter, and like how do I post? And it can give you ideas, and then it shouldn't be the end all be all. You should be able to edit and tweak, but it could give you some baseline concepts. What we've also found in terms of channels, paper requests actually do have more impact sometimes than other channels, but there's always that caveat of money, of the environment, of like the actual data, of do you have the correct addresses on file? So I would say yes, paper requests are definitely an essential angle as well, but I would target your requests accordingly, because I can guarantee you that paper requests to certain generations is going to be different response rates, especially when you've got, college alumni or what have you that might be sent home to your parents' address. Addresses are also going to be shifting, so we're going to be talking about data accuracy in a second, but paper request is also shown to be something that is useful. The other thing is matching campaigns has shown to be an uptick in participation. It doesn't always mean like higher dollar values, but participation actually can be really useful too, of getting more people in the door. And if you behaviorally change participation, so that means you are getting people to give, even if it's smaller numbers, that will add up over time or will increase in their average giving as they increase their salary. Katie, you want to take over on these?
Okay, I'm curious, I don't know if we have time for it in the chat, of what kind of, as Katie has brought up, data is at the heart of everything we're talking about today. So thinking about what kind of CRM or database your school uses to collect information, and furthermore, what kinds of systems and channels you're using to reach out. As Katie just touched on, there is some data to say that the paper, a paper mailer campaign could be effective. But if you're utilizing a online donation or an online campaign, there's lots of different ways you can actually tweak your data so you're contacting specific groups of people at specific times. And that has shown to be more effective, obviously. So asking yourself, do I have a way at my school to send a mail merge to one class year? Do I have the ability to send a mail merge to individual clubs or sports groups? And when I do send that mail merge, what language am I using in the email? Am I attaching something like a newsletter? And we also are able on the Wavelength platform, but in your own alumni groups as well, to look at your alumni, right? Can you, as a school, differentiate your ask based on what kind of career and inferred salary your alumni has, right? If you are reaching out, obviously, to a 21-year-old alumni, that ask is going to look significantly different than, say, a 45-year-old attorney in New York City. And you want it to be different because we know that personalization leads to better engagement.
Absolutely. And as people are thinking of what channel you are not only communicating with in terms of outbound, how are you getting the word across of where are you asking them? Are you on social media? Are you on email? Is it text? Is it paper? However you're communicating out that you are requesting donations, it's then thinking through where can people donate? So giving preferences are going to be different across age ranges again. We'll go into those age ranges later on in this presentation, but this is from 2022, giving preferences, not just in education, but across nonprofits. Mobile, think of that as like Apple Pay or Venmo and all of that. Online is more credit, debit giving, and the rest are pretty straightforward. But again, these statistics, these graphs are all going to be available to you after this call, so you can start to see where you are in line with, giving trends across the industry to also just larger nonprofit giving trends.
So going along with where can people donate? So just taking an inventory for yourself. When you head to your school's website, is there an easy to access alumni tab? Is there an easy to access donation tab right on the home screen? So you need to have an easy way for your alumni to donate online. There are various different apps that you can investigate. On the Wavelength platform, we can both sync to your donation page, but we also use an app called Stripe, which is a online donation platform. And once your alumni has donated, that's not kind of the end, right? You want to be able to track that donation, when the person donated, why they donated, so you can keep that data and reflect what kinds of initiatives were most effective for your school. Again, we have some screen grabs on the right of the Wavelength platform, where we compile that data for you. But again, there's various platforms and various modes for you to be able to collect and track that donation data.
Well, Katie
For your
also, and I'm sorry to interrupt here, Katie, but this
no,
is actually a really good call out. So when you're thinking about tracking donations and back to the language section that we just covered, when you have personalization opportunities, it's really great to be able to call out if you recognize that they've given in the past. So as a loyal donor, we thank you for your previous giving. Would you be interested in giving another amount? Like, there are ways that you can recognize these individuals pretty easily because you should have this data on file already, and it makes them feel seen rather than just a cold outreach. Cold outreach is going to happen, but you just want to think through, if you've got the tracking capability, can you take this data to that next step and really make that alum feel engaged and seen as the individual? And honestly, with mail merge capabilities, you're actually able to send very personalized emails without actually needing to send unique ones out. You can be sending out thousands of emails, but only have crafted a single email simply by using mail merge. So regardless of what email solution you have, I'd say most of them would have that mail merge solution for you.
Yeah, and I want, Katie, can you just
Right.
pop back really quick? I wanted to point out really quick, and like I said, there's different apps, you can do it yourself, but we have here the frequency option that I think would be really effective for you, because you can get someone to say quarterly, yeah, I want to donate. And then we also have a short call to action on that donation prompt where it's for the annual fund. So thinking about when you're displaying your donation platform or however you donate, making sure that specific language of what they're donating for, can they donate, kind of do a multiple time donation.
And the giving reason, exactly. So just think through what, however, when again, going back to this online being such a major giving platform and channel of way people want to give, think through what information do they have in front of them? Not only those, how many people can, like those guidelines of 5, 10, $15 donations to the frequency to where can I be donating, all of that. Yes, Katie.
Yes, we have a question from Hannah talking about Venmo and whether or not any other schools were successful in setting it up as a giving platform. I can speak really quickly just from my experience in K-12 of a school I have a relationship with does have a Venmo, but they do take a significant percentage out, and you have to make sure your school is designated as a nonprofit. So I'd love to hear, Katie, if we have time, if anyone else has some feedback about Venmo. Katie, if you have feedback about Venmo, because Hannah's right, it is a preferred giving platform for the younger generation.
Anyone feel free to speak up or raise their hand if they want to share. I think that Venmo is definitely, if you can make that work, that's great. My one piece of feedback around Venmo, as Katie said, you have to set it up the right way. You're going to be likely linking it to a phone number or to an email. You just need to make sure that if there is a chance of turnover and the person who set up the account is leaving, that it's really linked directly to your school and that is changed to another person being able to own the account. That is the issue we've seen in the past with schools having challenges, is just thinking through when you're setting up a unique account on any of these donation platforms, making sure that it's an easy transfer if you're going to have different admin be switching through ownership. That's the main one, is like the setup email and phone number for admin that Venmo have had issues with or schools have issues with in the past. You're muted, Katie.
If you have obviously somebody who works on your school's IT or website, they might have some feedback for you, because I know you can create like a visual, like donate here, and then I have seen them linked to Venmo before, but I'll take a look, because that's a great question.
Yeah. Thank you. Excellent. So now about when are you asking? This is going to be just high level because, again, it's going to be so specific to your school's initiatives, but I want you to think through general giving campaigns and thinking about your calendar. If you consider the full year, like just think about the school year or the calendar year, however you want to break it down. You want to consider, when are there kind of national giving campaigns that typically happen, like Giving Tuesdays, or if you have events like alumni reunions, are you having specific moments throughout the year where you're targeting around a single day that you want donations coming in, or do you have targeted annual giving? How does your annual giving align with these singular events you have lined up when you're thinking of matching practices? How are the donations that are coming in organically throughout the year being used for, if you have like matching days? The calendar is really important because it goes back to how and who is doing the ask. You don't want to be over communicating with the same people on the same day if you have your alumni also reaching out to them as well as yourself. And so you want to try and spread out your asks. Think through how many people are there the same people being asked the same time throughout the year? Are you dispersing your ask so that the entire alumni base is feeling the requests? So just think through, as you're considering your calendar, how are you doing the ask? What type of marketing they're receiving? What channels are you present on? And how do you really approach the right timeline?
So as we have said again and again, any successful alumni donation campaign involves quality data and quality consistently making sure that the data is up to date and correct. So asking yourself, do you have a way to request updates from your alumni? Katie touched on it earlier with the mailer campaign that addresses change. So do you have a set schedule for your school to reach out to your alumni and have them confirm their data that it is correct? Are you consistently evaluating your data health for your school? Are there gaps? Are there larger areas where your data does not look as healthy that you can expend some resources into making sure that your information is correct? We also, suggest that you have a mechanism in place to identify members of your school that perhaps you don't have information for. Is there a way for you to have fellow alumni reach out and contact them, or can you use on again a screen grab from Wavelength, but there's various ways for you to type in an individual's first and last name and to be given suggested individuals with contact information, and that's all easily accessible on the internet. And then furthermore, for a mail merge situation, we do on the Wavelength platform have a pre-created confirm your data email, which and you will be able to take a look at. And if you wanted to copy something similar for your school, essentially what it is a pre-filled email with the information you do have, prompting them to confirm that it is correct or not.
We find, so statistically 25% of your data decays each year. So as people are changing jobs, changing careers, changing location, all of that, your data is decaying every day. So this is something to consider. Is people who see visually missing or incorrect data, they're more likely to take action. So having a passive form of update us on where you are now, that's nice to have, but I guarantee you the last thing they're going to remember to do if they're moving across the country is to say, oh, I haven't updated my alma mater on my address change. So doing a prompt that is outbound into someone's inbox is more likely to have them actually update you with information, and that's just something to consider. The other thing to consider is when you think through donations and all of your asks, obviously in this screen grab, I shared 98% coverage, but you're not going to have 98% coverage in terms of number of emails you have on your alumni. You have to recognize that when you're looking at your participation, when you're looking at trying to get donations in the door, it's only to the contactable alumni that you are actually able to reach out to. So if you have a large population of people you cannot reach out to simply because you're missing their contact information, there's a whole lot of missed opportunity and engagement with this group, not because they're disengaged, but they're just unaware. We really try and differentiate those two. Disengaged and unaware are two different populations. And so think through, are there data enrichment or are there data initiatives, volunteers that can help you identify from their classmates, hey, this is some missing information you have. Data is going to be really essential as you think through your campaigns and when to reach out. Is the step before that is prepping your data to be able to reach out a lot more targeted, and you're not going to lose out in terms of money regarding the number of mailing campaigns and bounce back addresses you probably have. If you take that step of getting the better data, it's definitely worth your while. So before we delve into really getting into the personalized, how you should be reaching out to people more directly, we want to talk about recognizing your donors. Recognizing donors, this is also recognizing your alumni who are volunteering, is really essential in addressing that they are helping continue to run your school. In their impact, their donation is helping students today receive education from your school. So think through, how are you recognizing your donors, and is it personal one-on-one? Is it needing to actually have names and share those names out? Or is it just addressing the larger initiative of, we want to thank our entire alumni population? So channels is the type of channel, and the type of thank you is going to differ depending on the donor and the size and all of that. But just consider that this is also a part beyond getting the donation in the door. There's a step after that to encourage donations at a later date and for more annual giving over time.
Yeah, we just want you to consider, again, speaking to the personalization and how effective that is for your alumni. Is there a way that your school celebrates the donations from individuals? And that can be something as little as like a name in a pamphlet or as large as a feature or spotlight in your newsletter. On the Wavelength platform, we do have capabilities for you to give a badge to certain individuals when they've donated, as well as host a newsletter. But just really thinking about it when you're creating your next newsletter, are there some individual alumni who have donated for perhaps a specific campaign or with a really strong story or message or testimony to your school? Thinking about including that language in your next outreach campaign or your next newsletter.
That spotlight really helps to propose giving at a future date. So even if the focus isn't this is a donor, and instead you're focusing on the alum in their successful, career or life stage that they're in, that highlight can make them feel really good to be able to give at a future date as well. So you really want to think about teeing up future giving, um, and just consider who you are really doing those profiles on. Okay, so this last section, I already know that there are a lot of visuals I'm about to share that you're going to want me to just pause on, and I will try to, but again, this we will have shared in the presentation slides very soon. But essentially, the idea is that your alumni are in all different life stages. They're going to be in college, they're going to be 80, 90 years old retirees thinking about, their wills. All of that is really important to consider as you are thinking through the language you're using, what channels you're using, and how you really personalize your approach and who should be contacting each one of these groups. This is a case study that is all K-12 directed, and it was showing how alumni are the largest donor groups for schools, for these K-12 schools. And when you're thinking about alumni being these donors, you want to consider them as I get them in as participants to start as young alumni, smaller donations. Yes, it's a lot of effort, but if I continue that behavior of ongoing giving over time, then I can continue to maintain their giving to get dollars in the door later. It's going to help your goals at a future state. Parents Parents of alumni are also major donors to consider. So don't think that, especially those young alumni parents, they still have a very strong relationship with your school. So if you're continuing to communicate with them, including them in newsletters and campaigns, you have actual donation capabilities from non-alumni to also consider. And you could actually spotlight a lot of alumni to parents of alumni as a way of showing like we supported your student and now look at where they are, continue on this story for current students as well. So all of this language, all of this is to say that you have more than just alumni and community members at large to think about when requesting asks. This visual is showing donations. Again, this is K-12 schools, okay? And this link, and the next slide has the link to this study because it actually goes into boarding schools versus independent K-12, all of that. But what this really shows is that the total donated is drastically different than the total number of donors. So you're going to have a lot of large donations from a very few small group of people, and the rest are going to be small donations in terms of total donors. So I think this circle graph is actually going to show exactly what the top graph is trying to show here is basically the top 3 largest donors make up nearly 50% of total donations these schools received, and the rest came from the remaining donors. Now, I know that means that a lot of times you're trying to think on, okay, what are my major donors? How can I bring them in the door? And that's obviously incredibly essential. But you have to think about that these large donors used to be in this pale section before they came into their money, however that was. So you want to maintain a strategy from end to end so that eventually your largest donors will no longer be your largest donors for whatever reason, including passing away, and how can you get next in line large donors prepped to be able to give down the line. So it's really that ongoing strategy. So let's go into the generations and their preferences, and this is US-based statistics in terms of what their giving behaviors are. This is 2023 data. So you've got the oldest generation, which is around the silent generation. There's a lot of giving. They're giving larger amounts than younger populations. Their preferred contact methods are voice calls and direct mail. This is a direct contrast to your young alumni. And these groups are going to be into the larger donations graphs that you saw there right before this. The way they're going to want to donate is go through direct mail or voice calls. Like they will want to either give probably check, wire, or from a voice call, they would give their information. They're not going to be the tech savvy group, so you really need to think through how you're getting in front of them. And this is where physical mailers, physical addresses, this is where when we talked about paper being worthwhile, this group is that paper group. Baby boomers. This is the next older generation. 72% are giving to charity. Their annual average is around the same as the silent group. They are also being more prompted to be giving online donations based on the direct mail campaigns. So when you're thinking about contact methods, where their preferred contact messages, they are comfortable on the phone. They are comfortable with text messages, email, social, like they are everywhere at this point, but they are wanting to give online. Generation X. This is kind of the in-between millennial baby boomer side. So Generation X, they, again, as you can see, the trend as you get older in age, the more they have to give. They are going to be leading in volunteer hours. So what I didn't mention earlier on in this call is beyond just wanting to have guidance and liking control of where people donate their money, a lot of times people also like control of where they volunteer their hours. If they can't give money, they're wanting to give their hours. And same with just donating their time. They want control of what they can volunteer for. So with this population, it is a hefty part of, the US population at this point. Email prompts are leading to a lot of their donating campaigns. Online giving, again, is where most of the people are going to be giving from this generation. We then get into millennials. This is where a large population is giving to charity, but you can already see the jump down from the $1,200 average giving to down to $480 in this group. It's 26% of the US population, but account for only 11% of total giving. In 2016, so this is 2016 data, this is why I wanted to call it out. There is only, they're giving through the organization's website. Online giving is going to be where most people are going to want to give. If it's through an app, if it's through a direct link, it could be Venmo. It just needs to be online rather than, check in the mail. Text and messaging, as well as social media posts. Millennials, social media is like where to be for millennials. And this is where you can see that the paper trail and phone calls, like this starts to be where phone calls people aren't picking up with this age range. We then get to Gen Z. They are definitely more interested in that storytelling, that impact, those grassroots causes. That's what their focus is going to be on. They are donating a lot more of their time in volunteering and spreading word on social media. So this is where you could actually get a little bit more engagement in terms of volunteering perhaps, and lower dollars in the door, which is totally fine, especially with this age group. But if you get them inspired, you can get them giving more over time. You want to get them in the door and being compelled. The thing with social media is that you're either on the good side, like you want them to be talking about you positively, but it can happen very quickly where there's a reverse And negative marketing can hit you hard in terms of the way social media can spread stories. So you want to be very careful in terms of what just like your message, your vision, and making sure your marketing is very clear with expectations on what's going on. Um, Excellent. So now to Katie, you want to take over this slide?
Yeah, just thinking about hotspot maps for a second and visualizing that data. Here we have a hotspot map of where alumni live. So you should absolutely be examining your geographic data for your alumni when you plan initiatives like events. Just a personal story, I just got an email today from my high school inviting me to a Boston area, a greater Boston area event. And I really was like, oh, that's wonderful. Like, I would love to go attend something like that. So it really is effective. And again, going to that personalization, can you create events? Can you designate a volunteer? Have your Boston, and this person, it was hosted by a Boston alumni. Can you designate someone to host the event, to reach out to their contacts? And do you have an ability to visualize your geographic data? This is our map-based search directory on Wavelength, but again, you are able to do this if you collect enough data about where your alumni are living and how many are living in that radius.
Even a spreadsheet alone would have the ability to start identifying where people are by state, and I think I might have this in this. This is just visuals, but you have the data. And it's one where can you do the breakdown to not only identify where people are, but what type of groups are they? What age groups are they? Are you doing an event or from like a C-suite level? Are you looking at potential major donors? Is there a hot spot of major donors in one area that you should be sending your head of school to? What you want to do is start to break down your data accordingly so that you can really make sure that when you are breaking down your contact and outreach, that you're personalizing it, you've got it with intention. So I would say back to, I'm like hitting you over the head with this data front. What you want to do is take a step back before you even think about your marketing and look at what is your current state of what do I know? What do I know today? How can I break down and parse this information into meaningful groups? And the key is back to the very first slide of what's your intention for today's call? Is there a pain point or a question you're trying to ask that your data can help guide you with today? If I've got a really strong population here, let me test X language and see. A/B testing is key to be able to really see if you start to make these tweaks, these changes in your language, these changes in your approach, is it moving that needle in terms of increasing engagement and increasing larger donations or getting those unaware or disengaged back into donating over time? I wanted to share this, and Katie, I'm stealing your slide here, just because we actually, what you want to think through in terms of someone's profile is not only what you know in terms of their location, but between inferred salary, between what career field they're in, there's also ways that you can make assumptions around their giving capability. So we all know salaries differ from the finance space to education to otherwise. So as you think through someone's information, LinkedIn is a way that you can very easily get some basic information. And it's same with other social media channels. The thing with social media is that you really want to understand as you're posting campaigns. So social media is going to have the data for you, but as you're posting campaigns, you're fighting against everyone else in terms of attention, right? So you're going to be posting at a certain time, so is everyone else. And that's not just for donation purposes, but you've got people's friends posting all around your post as they're swiping through whatever channel they're on. So you have to be present on social media, but you need to be posting